Hello and welcome. My name is Ellen Estelle, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to sew Mccalls M8252. Now, this is a pattern from their early spring 2022 collection. I saw this pattern and I instantly fell in love with it. I love the 80s poofy sleeves, as well as the interesting cutouts and the circle embellishment. For this pattern, you'll need one package of 1/2 inch wide single fold bias tape, one 9-inch invisible zipper, just about 1 yard of 3/8 inch wide elastic, as well as 2 hook and eyes. Now, what they don't tell you that you also need is a ring for this circle part of the dress. Now, I did a little testing with this since it's not included in the original instructions or notions on the package. Now, through trial and error, I ended up using a 3-inch binder clip. So silver. What I like about it is that the binder clips open. So while sewing the skirt and the top, there's a lot of fabric that you need to get scrunched in there or gathered in there onto this one loop. My guess is that when they made the original pattern, they probably used a 4-inch hoop, which rings are usually pretty easy to find in the garment district in New York. So, I mean, you could go to like Pacific Trimming and find some. You could even probably find some at Mood. I obviously didn't have that luxury of just going out and picking up, one ring that was big enough. And I also found that if you're going to use a binder clip, the biggest that I could find was 3 inches online. I ended up buying this from Target. They had a variety pack of different sizes, including this 3-inch, 2-inch, 1, and so on. So for this pattern, you will need bias binding to finish the edges of the bodice, the skirt, and the neckline. I ended up using double fold bias tape because that's what I had on hand from making masks, and I wanted to use what I had in my stash already. The sleeves are really interesting. They're actually made using a sleeve stay underneath. So the whole sleeve is like twice the width. And then it's all gathered and sewn onto this sleeve stay on the inside so that it's a clean finished hem, which I really like about it. It obviously adds a lot more volume to it as well, since the sleeve stay is a little bit shorter and narrower underneath. It really adds the volume. This fabric I purchased from Mood, and I love this print. I actually wanted to use it for Valentine's Day. I just didn't get it in time and decided to use it now while I found this pattern, because as soon as I saw the pattern online, I knew that this fabric was going to be perfect for it. It is a cotton poplin. So what I originally had thought would be red ended up being this bright orange color as the base color, and then this purple watercolor print on top. Now the back skirt has this invisible zipper. That's just to make it easier to slip on and off. And then the back of the bodice actually has elastic in order to keep it tight and close to your body. There is a keyhole right here that's just closed with a hook and eye. I ended up really liking this pattern. It is super fun, and it was really easy to work with, especially with a cotton poplin, because it presses so nicely, and yet it's lightweight enough to use for the sleeves so that they're nice and big. And then it also gathers nicely as well. Follow along to learn more.
First, we're going to start out by cutting out the pattern pieces. The front bodice and front skirt pieces only need one piece cut out. Be sure to unfold your fabric for those. The sleeve pieces are also fairly large and require the fabric to be unfolded and cut one at a time. Be sure to flip your pattern piece over when cutting out the second piece. Don't forget to cut your elastic using the elastic guide. With the right sides together, pin your skirt front pieces together along the center seam. Sew at 5/8 of an inch and finish the raw edges. Then take your back skirt pieces and pin them with right sides together to the front skirt pieces along the side seam like this. Sew and finish the raw edges. Then fold your skirt with right sides together and sew the center back seam from the large circle to the hem of the skirt. You will sew an invisible zipper from the large circle to the top edge of the skirt in order to complete this seam. Sew the center back seam from the large circle to the hem of the back bodice pieces. You will leave the top edge to the large circle open for a keyhole. Finish the raw edges separately and press the seams away from each other. Press under the bottom edge of the back bodice 2 times at about 1/2 inch each time like this. Then, with right sides together, pin your bodice front and bodice back pieces together at the shoulder seams. Sew at 5/8 inch and finish the raw edges. Then sew down the folded edge of the back bodice as close to the folded edge as possible. This will form your casing for the elastic. Now insert your elastic into the back bodice piece like this. I like to use a safety pin to help me thread the elastic through. Be sure to adjust the tension to your preference. I ended up cutting off about 3 inches of elastic. Your bodice should be looking like this. To finish your neck hole, use your bias binding to finish the raw edge. Match up the raw edges and sew. Then fold your bias binding to cover the raw edge of the fabric. Fold the binding to the underside and sew the folded edge down all the way around the neckline. It will look like this. Use the bias binding along the bottom edges of the front bodice piece like this. Once you have the elastic adjusted to your preference and your bias binding sewn, you can sew the side seams with right sides together. Finish the raw edges and press the seam flat like this. You will also use the binding along the top edges of the skirt like this. The portion of the skirt that is not covered by the bias binding will be folded under 2 times. In order to help the fabric fold, it is easier to cut notches along the edge about 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep every 1/2 inch or so. This is what will be used for the casing for the ring. Here is where you can decide whether you want to hand sew the solid ring into the fabric as the instructions tell you, or use a binder ring and thread it through the casing that you sew. To make the casing for the binder ring, sew along the folded edge as close to the folded edge as possible, just like you did with the elastic casing. The width of the folded fabric does not need to be as precise since the binder ring is so much thinner than the elastic. You will repeat this process for the raw edge of the front bodice as well. Now, fold your sleeve in half and sew the side seams together with right sides together. Repeat for both sleeves and the sleeve stays. Finish the raw edges and press these seams. Now gather the bottom and top edges of the sleeve along the sleeve cap like this. Gather the top edge of the sleeve stay like this. With right sides together, pin the sleeve stay and sleeve along the bottom edge. The notches of the stay and sleeves should match up on both sides. Sew and finish this seam so it looks like this. Then flip the sleeve right side out and pin or baste along the edges of the sleeve and sleeve stays with wrong sides together. Now sew your sleeves into your armholes, matching up the notches. Sew at 5/8 inch and finish the raw edges. Repeat for the other sleeve. Now all that there's left to do is thread the binder ring through your bodice and skirt casing. Like I said, the 3-inch binder ring was the largest I could find anywhere, so I had to do a lot of scrunching in order to get all of this fabric onto the ring. For extra security, you can super glue the ring closed. If you would like to use a solid ring, I would highly recommend using at least a 4-inch ring. That way you can sew the folded edge of the casing a little more easily. And be sure to add your hook and eyes to your skirt and back bodice. And finish your skirt hem at 5/8 inch. And there you have it. Mccalls M8252 is a super fun party dress that is sure to wow. Be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time.